it's just not helping us. So remember Aristotle talks about, being angry, that's easy. That's not the problem. The problem is being angry to the right degree, in the right situation, with the right person, and so forth. So I certainly would say that there are processes that are very valuable and important for understanding those types of emotions and so forth. So I don't want to minimize that. I also, though, would wonder what you would think about using, would it be proper, and I don't know, but would it be proper or helpful, do you think, to use some of those same processes that are used around getting behind negativity? What about using them to reflect on the positive sides, on assets, on possibilities, on opportunities? Because sometimes those are really hard to see until you're really looking for them. And so one of the really exciting things is, if we had more time tonight, we could have done some of these things. For example, around the signature strengths. And I think the Gallup folks do similar things as well around those strengths finder strengths. And it's you identify what one of your strengths is, and then you tell somebody else a time when you used that strength in a powerful way, and you hear yourself reflected back. And what's really powerful is if you can do this in a group. Before I was at Penn, I was at Vanderbilt, and I did that with a class of 20 students sitting around in a circle, and we spent the first, it was about maybe 6 hours or so of the semester telling our stories and having that reflected back to us. And it is a powerful thing to have a group of your peers say to you, I so respect you for what you did. And although it took a lot of time at the beginning of class, you can imagine the whole semester, it just changed the tone of the class. And I had people saying, I'm closer to people in this class than I am to my own friends, because we've been able to get to this. So my guess is that some of those similar processes might also work on the Green Cape side. Arthur?
When I taught positive psychology with Marty at Penn, I had to talk to the undergraduates about flow, about Mike Csikszentmihalyi's work on flow. And the undergraduates really didn't understand what absorption in something, and engagement in something over a sustained period of time where you could really get better at gardening.
You said they did not? Okay.
They didn't have these experiences as undergraduates. They were so on the treadmill of success, of ambition, of getting the degree, of getting to the next stage, that there was no pause for flow. It was really startling to us. Could you talk a bit more about this as it relates to an intervention in higher education? Yeah, absolutely. I think this is one point where it's really, one place where it's really important to emphasize the co-curricular. So I'll tell you a story of when I was at Vanderbilt University, and I was offering a course on character development, which included positive psychology and philosophy and so forth. And a student came to me and said, I'd love to take your class, but it conflicts with my practice schedule. Could I have an independent study with you? And I said, sure, no problem. Actually, I said, sure, no problem, because she was 6'6". She was the star center on the Vanderbilt basketball team. And so I decided I better begin attending the games to try to understand, where she was coming from. And so I went to the game, and there were two senior stars on that team. And in the first 2 minutes, the senior point guard got hurt. And so my student, Chantel, wound up having to rise to the occasion and go for it. And it was a hard game, but she went into flow. And Vanderbilt won the game. So the next day, I was meeting with her for the first time, and I said, hey, I was at the game last night. It was great. She's like, yeah, it's just weird. Sometimes it's like something happens to me, and I go to a different place, and I can really focus. And I'm like, there's a name for that. She's like, really? I didn't know there was anything I could do, but I just thought it sometimes happened. It's like, no, and actually that has to do with your first reading assignment. So I said, I want you to read the first half of Flow for next week. So she's reading the first half of Flow. That Thursday, they have another game. And by the way, Chantel was a wonderful player. She's actually held the all-time scoring record for men or women for Vanderbilt. She was the number 2 draft pick in the WNBA when she graduated. So that Thursday, they have another game.
And it was a tough game. I went to the game, tough game. But this time, it was one of those experiences where the entire team goes into flow. Have you seen that? Have you experienced it? And it's just like, man, it's magical. It's incredible. So I went back, and tough game, Vanderbilt won. I went back and I sent Chantel an email. I said, Chantel, just wanted you to know I was at the game. It was impressive. That was really great. She writes back, all capital letters, it worked, it worked. Everything in that book about flow worked, right? And so we spent a large part of the rest of the semester talking about her experience, and her life in basketball was transformed. She wound up, when she went to the WNBA, she continued to, she said part of her pregame warm-up was reading flow, right? So my guess, Arthur, my guess is that those students had some experiences, they just didn't know how to get to them. And so I think the co-curricular world is a wonderful place. It's easier, I think, to know what it's like to feel flow when you're playing basketball than when you're reading Plato, for most people, right? So I think that's one way of trying to come at it.
But in light of what you're saying, I'm wondering if you wouldn't want to add another slide to the PowerPoint and talk about the role of positive psychology in pedagogy, because mobilizing positive emotion to learn.
Absolutely.
I think grading is a red tape strategy, by the way, but but mobilizing positive psychology in people's strengths to help them learn. Because when you have your slide and you talk about the disciplines, you're talking about the content, the theoretical base in the disciplines, but what about learning mathematics?
Right.
What about learning?
Right. And to my mind, honestly, to my mind, those are not distinct. Because when you love to learn a subject, I mean, it's really hard to be in a boring subject with a boring teacher using your strengths and, really having fun anyway. That's tough. It's an uphill battle. Maybe it could be done. But I think what's ideal is when it's a classroom environment, when the process of pedagogy, you're exactly right, the processes of pedagogy use these kinds of principles, and the subject matter itself